إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome back to the Seerah course, Deeper Seerah. Today's lesson will be on language development in the Arabian Peninsula. Most people think that the Arabic language is very ancient, and they think that it's even a like an Adamic language, and they think that it's going all the way back to Adam alayhi salam. In this lecture, we'll have a look at the evolution of the Arabic language, and in fact, it's actually quite a recent language as far as languages go. So let's start first. This language here, what language is this? If you're familiar with your classics, this is Greek. This is Greek, the Greek language. What language is this? Everybody knows this. The Arabs called it the language of the birds. This is Egyptian hieroglyphics. This is it with its color on. This hasn't been colored later. This is how the original coloring was, but over here, over a millennia, 2 millennia, 3 millennia, the coloring tends to fade off. Even now when they open tombs, they do find remnants of color. Even the Sphinx, the actual Sphinx, there are still remnants of color on the sides of its face and on its beard that they found broken off and like stuff like that. This is heretic. This is the cursive form of Egyptian writing that they would use to write on paper, because it's the other form is the monumental hieroglyphic form for monuments, but for everyday writing they would write on parchment, and it would be on in this format. They would have reed paper, so they would like straighten out reed rushes and dry them out, and then they would like make the paper like that, and you can see it when you hold the paper. It's a tomb robbery. It lists items stolen from a royal burial in Karnak. What language is this? This is another language, and this is cuneiform. This is the ancient language of the Levant, the ancient script, should I say. There were various languages. Um, the royal language was Aramaic. The Persians adopted it. The Assyrians used it, and later even the Nabataeans used it. That was the royal language. But the script, they had their own. They had one script that they would use, and then their own languages they would also write in the same. It's cuneiform. What language is this? This is Hebrew, if you know your Hebrew, and this is Aramaic. Aramaic, written like this, looks really beautiful, and it does look close to Arabic as well, and it's a sister language to Arabic, and Arabic did come out of, I'm not going to give it away at the moment. Okay, so what's this? Blank canvas. Why am I showing a blank canvas? I'm showing a blank canvas because this is what people assume, that the Arabian Peninsula is a vast desert. There's nothing there, nothing came out of the peninsula. We have the concept of Jahiliyyah, which we've heard about, and we will look at Jahiliyyah in further lessons. But when people imagine Arabia, this is what they imagine. When they imagine Egypt, you think, wow, monuments, pyramids, temples, Ramses, pharaohs. When you think of Sumer, you think of monuments, the Epic of Gilgamesh. You think of Hammurabi from the Akkadians and his legal code. When you think of the Romans, you think of the vast Roman Empire, its viaducts, amphitheaters, its circus that it would have in all of its domains. You can see the the circuses, they still have them. When you think of the Persians, you think of Persian art, Persian architecture, and things like that. China, the Great Wall. When you think of Arabia, what do you think? People normally think it's a blank canvas and there's nothing there, and if there ever was anything there, it's buried under the sands. And they think there's nothing there. Well, let's have a look further and see what this empty, vast desert can tell us. In fact, a lot. What language is this? This is a language that's carved on a rock in the Arabian Peninsula. So when I say the Arabian Peninsula, I'm talking Arabia proper, as in the peninsula, and then Jordan and parts of Syria. When I refer to Arabia, I refer to those areas as Arabia. This is ancient writing. This is writing, again, ancient writing on a rock face. And what language is this? If we take a look at this language, this is a language. It looks like squiggles. Again, this language was found on a rock face in the Arabian Peninsula or in the area of the Levant. And it's a language, and we've translated it, and it says, may Allah remember Abdullahi, son of Qayyamat, mason, who is of for good. Some words a bit difficult to translate. May Allah remember Aidu, mason, son of Abu Salem, for good. Now, the first thing that you notice here that's instantly recognizable if you paid attention is the name Allah. Allah is a pagan deity. So here we have an inscription mentioning the name Allah outside of the Qur'an. How amazing. This is again found in the Arabian Peninsula, in the same desert that people think is just a desert. Now, a huge number of inscriptions have been found in one specific area. They are spread throughout the length and breadth of the Arabian Peninsula and Jordan and Iraq, parts of Iraq and Syria. But a specific area we're targeting is the Black Desert. It's known as the Harat al-Sham, and it strides southern Syria and northern Jordan, and you can see it here. This is what it is close up. There's like rocks, volcanic rock that's covering the landscape as far as you can see. This volcanic rock is very sharp to walk upon, and it's very difficult to traverse. And if we go back in history, or even every summer, we find that this area does tend to become a bit green, where you can have your sheep grazing and stuff like that. If you travel in the desert of Arabia in the spring, you do see greenery emerge. Even in Saudi Arabia, you'll see greenery. And we mentioned in the previous lecture how green parts of Saudi Arabia is. But even if you are traveling in the trackless desert, in spring, you'll see greenery. You'll see greenery emerge. This area here, lions, gazelles, horses, and large birds lived here. Who would have thought in a featureless, trackless desert, this is what used to live here? And we have mentions of lions in Islamic literature as well. This is the desert again from the sky. You can see that's probably a volcanic mound or just a natural mound. And then all around it, there are those black stones. And we can see signs of human activity where they've made these structures, which to this day, we're not really too sure what they are, but they litter the landscape from Saudi Arabia all the way up to Syria, Jordan and Syria. They litter the landscape. We don't know what they are. That's another area of research. And here is something else again. This is known as a spoke. So from the air, you can only really see this from the air. It's known as a spoke because it's a wheel with spokes in the middle. All around it is black rock. It's that black rock that we're interested in at the moment. This is a close-up picture of the same black rock. Imagine walking there. It's very difficult. You can't walk there. You'd have to find other ways of walking. Again, here's black rock. This looks like unassuming black rock. But if you look closer, you'll start to see signs. What signs am I talking about? Look closer. On at least 1, 2, 3, 4 rocks, 5 rocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rocks, you can see carved inscriptions, writings of man that had passed through this area 1,000, 2,000, 2,500 years before. This is writing left by them. And in fact, the whole Arabian desert is littered with this. So when we think of the Arabian desert as a blank canvas, it's not exactly that. There is so much data, and we've only just touched the surface of these inscriptions. And we're still interpreting the ones that we do have. And there's so much out there, it would take generations to sieve through all of it and try to work out the languages and translate these ancient languages and to work out who these people were, what their beliefs were, and what they were doing in their life. Here's a close up here. This is from the Harra, right? So there's three, four, five stones, six stones carved with various writings. The one on the left looks like it's Arabic. That's a recent carving. Even the one in the middle, they may in fact all be Arabic. I don't know. That means they're recent carvings. This is a Safiotic inscription. We'll mention these languages in a bit. Safiotic is a language that's dead now. It's very close to Arabic. It's a Semitic language. And this is a Safiotic inscription. And notice that Safiotic inscriptions don't have a beginning, like a set beginning. You can start any way you want and you can curve and then you can bring back again, which is what's happening here. Okay, so just to put it into context, Ubayd ibn Sharia in 660 CE, that's 576 20 Rasul passed away. So 40 years after the passing of Rasul, this is now when the caliphate is with Muawiyah. Muawiyah is asked, who are the Arab al-Ariba and the Arab Musta'riba? These are the classifications of the Arabs. Arab al-Ariba, the original Arabs. Arab al-Musta'riba are the Arabized Arabs, i.e. the descendants of Ismail alayhi salam. Rasul was from the Arab al-Musta'riba. His answer was, they are Ad, Thamud, Tasim, Gadis, Iram, Al-Amalik, Gurham, and Qahtan, son of Hud. This is their understanding at that time of who the Arab al-Ariba are. So this is Muawiyah, he's trying to understand, because they're in a position now where they're sitting, all the riches of the world are coming in, they're a powerful empire, and they're thinking, who are we? Where did we come from? So this is the first time attested they're asking these questions. Then he says the first amongst them was Ya'rub, who spoke Arabic, and everybody took it from him. This is mentioned in the books, but this is a critical Seerah we're studying here. We're studying the pre-Seerah in detail to understand points that end up in the Seerah, but they don't really have any relevance or meaning to the Seerah. It's just words, empty words. Arabs believe that one of the ancestors in their family tree is somebody called Ya'rub, and he was the first one to speak Arabic, right? Ya'rub, Arab, it's a derived Ya'rub. So this obviously is not true, right? It's written in the books, but it's not true. This is their understanding. Why? Because you don't have a language. So you have language A, everybody speaks language A, and then a son is born who's now miraculously speaking language B. Right? And after him, everybody starts speaking language B. It doesn't work like that. So obviously that part isn't true, but we're just bringing forth the evidences here for people to reflect on. Abraham took his son to Mecca and he settled there and learned Arabic from Gurham. This is the Muslim understanding. Yes, Abraham did take his son there, and again, the fact that he learned Arabic from Gurham, this is very problematic as well. But let's go with the narrative for the moment. So this is the first time we can see a documented interest in Arabs wanting to know about their own linguistic past. It's just beyond the horizon of their memory. So they cannot tell you for sure, and they can't give you definite answers, and because it's something that's unknown, just beyond the horizon of their memory, they want to know, right? Now, Ibn al-Kalbi, he wrote a book called the Book of Idols, Kitab al-Asnam. He mentions that the first to speak Arabic were the Amalik, who traveled to Arabia from Babylon. They are Gurham, are the Arab al-Ariba. Again, this is what they believe. The epigraphic record today teaches us something else, but we're having a look at what they believed at the time. As-Suyuti cites Ibn Abbas by way of Atad that he said, Hud was the first to speak Arabic. Hud alayhi salam prophet, an Arabian prophet, was the first to speak Arabic. Al-Kalbi then explains his theory further. He says, Bishr ibn Abdul Malik, brother of Uqaydar ibn Abdul Malik ibn Abdul Ajin, the ruler of Dumat Jandal, a town in northern Syria, northern Saudi Arabia, was a Christian who often visited and stayed in Al-Hira. Bishr learned how to write the Arabic script from the people of Al-Hira. Later he visited Mecca for trade. There he was seen writing by Sufyan ibn Umayy ibn Abdul Shams and Abdul Qais ibn Abdul Manaf ibn Zahra ibn Kilab. They asked Bishr to teach them how to write, which he did. Later, Bishr, Sufyan, and Abu Qais visited the city of Ta'if for trade. They were accompanied by Ghaylan ibn Salama al-Thaqafi, whom they taught how to write the Arabic script. Bishr then traveled to the land of Mudar, where he also taught the Arabic script to Amr ibn Zuraha ibn Adis, who became known as Amr the scribe. So his theory is that the Arabs of Quraysh learnt the Arabic language, the script, not the language, the script, which may be possible, from Al-Hira. Al-Hira was a center of culture and art. It was a center for poetry. It may well be that this is what happened. Wahab ibn Munabbi, he says God revealed He said God revealed Arabic with its 29 letters to Prophet Hud. So again, they keep thinking this. Either they're just cataloging what were the akhbar, what were the speech available at the time. So that's all they're doing. They're just cataloging things without critically analyzing them. Or if they actually believed in this is very strange for them to believe in things like this. The earliest source of Arabic that we have and that these people had was the Qur'an. Right? And this is a very early Qur'an. You can see the writing there. There's no diacritical marks. We don't know where each word starts and where each of the different words separate. There's no separation. There's no diacritics, and it's very difficult to read. We also have the mu'allaqat. These were the hanging odes, the 7 famous hanging odes, which were supposed to have been hanging in the Kaaba. There's no evidence to prove anywhere, not in the Seerah, nor outside of the Seerah from the time, to prove that 7 odes did hang in the Kaaba. And it seems a very strange story that you would just hang poetry that has nothing to do with what the Kaaba was for, and you hang it in there, right? So I don't believe it was hanged in the Kaaba, and nor do academics, but it's called the Mu'allaqat, the 7 hanging the odes. They were the limits of the linguistic horizon of the Arabs. What do I mean here? So we have Arabic in its zenith, in its absolute form, in its pristine crystallized form. We have classical Arabic, which is the Qur'an. Fair enough. And then we have pre-Islamic poetry, which was from the same milieu, a generation or two before the coming of Rasulullah, the Arabic language had crystallized, had come to its not crystallized, but it was moving towards its zenith. Pretty much it got to its zenith. And it was the highest form of eloquence to write poetry. Now, we'll mention poetry in a separate lecture, but the purpose of mentioning this is that these 2 registers are what we have. We have the Quran in its highest linguistic, miraculous nature, and then we have pre-Islamic poetry, which is of a very, very high standard. And this is the limits of their linguistic inquiry. They didn't know anything else beyond this. But of course, today we know much more than this. Now, moving away from the Arabic language, this here is known as the Musnad script. It's very beautiful, and it's something that is very easy to learn as opposed to the other languages, because we have large samples of this. Is very clearly and beautifully written, and we know what these words mean today. However, was that the case in the time of the Sahaba, or no, actually the Sahaba were familiar with this, some of them. I'm talking about in the medieval period, when the Muslims had forgotten, the Arabs, should I say, had forgotten large parts of their own history. So Ibn Khaldun states in his Tarikh, Himyar had a script known as Al-Musnad. Its letters were isolated. They used to prevent people from learning it except by their permission. Mudhar learned how to write in Arabic from Himyar, except that they weren't good at it, was the case with their crafts. This is his understanding. There may be a kernel of truth in this somewhere or not, we cannot verify now. There was not a single standard of Musnad with the different tribes and regions having nuances to the script. That's with all languages. So even with the Arabic language, different countries have widely varying uh, styles of the intonation of the tongue changes from very close, like every 30-40 miles, and then when you change countries, the language seems different. The Arabic dialects are now widely differing from each other the further away from the Arabian Peninsula you go, so much so that when you get to the Maghreb, you seem to have a totally different language. Huge input from French, Darija they call it, and it's like the Berber input, the Amazigh input, and then Arabic that has changed so much that it's very difficult to understand. And when Moroccans have to speak to other people, they tend to use broken Arabic, broken Fusha Egyptian, Khaliji or Shami Arabic to kind of string together sentences, because everybody's aware that they will not be well understood if they don't do this. So likewise, even with the Muslim script, with every script, you're going to have variances in pronunciation, variances in writing styles, and that's a given. Al-Hamdani, another great scholar from the past, in his book Al-Iklil, he's a 9th century geographer. He mentions the existence of another language apart from Arabic called Himyaratic. So he's also mentioned this now. And not only has he just mentioned it, he seemed to have some working knowledge of it. So here in his book, you can see where he's actually written the letters and then on top written the Arabic alphabets corresponding to those letters, which means that up to the 9th century at least, people or some people had a working knowledge of these letters and what was written on the manuscripts. However, were they able to read those monuments in a proper form? Most probably not, because knowing just the alphabets isn't enough to be for someone to be able to read the monuments and the scripts and stuff like that. Here's a close-up here. You can see alif, ba, ta, tha, that, and underneath the corresponding signs. And then the next is jim, ha, kha. You would not know if you didn't look closely. And then he's given something underneath there. Strange. It looks like Arabic numerals underneath there. And then the ain, ghain, ta, dha, and then the corresponding musnad letters below. Here's another extract. This is the green have been added later for clarity. So this is the Muslim alphabet as sketched by Ibn Nadim in 990. He was from 990, died in 990. In his book Al-Firast, written around 970. Letters order is that of Old Hijazi and Tihama, which is almost identical to the one used today by Arabic dictionaries. If you want to do further research, it's a very fascinating field. It's a developing field. It's fairly new. The science isn't that old. The letters were first only, the texts were first identified and documented by Westerners only a couple of 100 years ago. But really, the real work has only been done like this century or the end of last century. Ahmad Jalad, just search his YouTube videos, amazing stuff you're going to find, and his research papers. He's a prolific writer and he's very eloquent, and he just loves to talk, and you just really would enjoy his lectures. And then you have Robert Hyland, a bit shy, slightly introverted. Again, his work is pretty decent. He's a student of Patricia Crone as well, so be careful on some of the things he says. He has a book called Arabia and the Arabs. It's a pretty decent book talking about all the historic culture of the Arabian Peninsula. And he mentions language and a few things like that, religion, for further research. Right, so this is Talmudic script. This is a rare bilingual inscription of Talmudic and Arabic. This is another language, another script, should we say, right? So it could be the fact that the language is the same, right? Not Arabic, but the script being used is just a different script, because there were dozens of scripts being used that we're still identifying now. So the style of the characters suggests that inscription dates back to the 5th century AD. So this is like two centuries before Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Talmudic inscriptions related to the South Semitic language and ancient North Arabian dialects typically date back to periods between the 4th century BCE and the 4th century CE. So around 1,000 years. It had a 1,000-year run. This discovery, however, indicates the use of Talmudic script continuing into the 5th century BC. So we have Talmudic above, and underneath that we have Arabic. And this is the Arabic of the 5th century. This is another bilingual script, ancient South Arabian, Himyarite, and Arabic. So you can see the stone there, and if you look on the right hand side, you can see the Musnad letters that we mentioned, and then you can see the Arabic carvings there also. This is probably from the 9th and 10th century, which means up to this date they could understand the script and translate it. So somebody has translated that script. Sometime after this period, we don't know when, we don't know why. We can speculate why, most probably accurately, but the knowledge died as Arabic took more prominence as a language all over the administrative realm of the Muslim empire. There was no need to work with these old languages anymore. You can see the name Muhammad there. Bar Ruyam. So this is a simplified table showing the development of the alphabet. So you have the proto-alphabet. This was the grandfather of the alphabets that was very first used. And it looked nothing like anything that we could recognize as a language today. Split into two. So on the left side is the Phoenicio-Aramaic family script, Old Phoenician. From there stemmed Greek, Etruscan, and Roman, Phoenician, Punic, Libyo-Berber, and Tifinagh. That's in North Africa, and then Paleo-Hebrew, and then the Samaritan. Old Arabic, Imperial Aramaic, Old Aramaic, Imperial Aramaic, and from Imperial Aramaic we have Hebrew, the square script, Syriac, which is a dialect of Aramaic, and the Hatran language in northern Arabia, and the Palmyrene, which is in Syria, and then the Nabataean, which is in Jordan, and then from the Nabataean came the Arabic language. So there you have it. The Arabic language wasn't here for always or forever. It developed pretty late, and it came from the Nabataean Arabic, and we'll have a look at fascinating examples of this. On the other side, we have the South Semitic script family, which is split into Northern Arabian Arabic and then scripts of the Oases, which is in Tama, Didan, and Duma, which is in the north, the top fringe of the Hijaz area. Then we had scripts of the nomads, which were Thamudic, Hismaic, Safayetic. When we say Thamudic, we're not referring to the people of Thamud. We don't know. They probably spoke a version of probably Hismaic or Safayetic, but which is like broken Arabic and Proto-Arabic. Thamudic is a language script. That's all it is. It just complicates things saying Thamudic, but they've named it Thamudic. And then it goes into Thamudic A, B, and C, I think, and it just gets more strange. Script of the nomads, meaning that when we have the rock carvings, we see that a lot of the rock carvings are carved in Safayetic, Hismaic, and Thamudic. Then we have the ancient South Arabian, which is the Musnad, which we just had a look at, and then the Ethiopic language, the Hassetiac language, and the Zabur language. So the language actually goes from Yemen, it actually travels into North Africa. So like Giz, the Ethiopic language, and what's that language? What's it called? It's a bit like Aramaic, the sound of that language, like what they call it. It slips my mind now, but we shall see it. So they will go back to this particular family. Here's an example of Safayetic script. Taken out on the left-hand side. Where does it start from and where does it end? It doesn't necessarily have any starting point or ending point. However you choose to write, Habibi, just write. So you will write this way. You could write like that and back on yourself. You could start here. You could start this way, go up. That's how the language is written. Then we have Hismaic. Now Hismaic, again, it looks like it's gone this way and it's just gone round again. And then Nabataean script. This is the Nabataean script. The Arabic came from this script, but if you look at the Nabataean script here, there's nothing here that you could say, this looks like the grandfather of Arabic. Right, here's another example of the Safietic script, right? You can see it's just going everywhere, and that's what it looks like on the rock face, and then there's a tracing of it here. Here's another chart. I like charts and graphs, and you'll see me often use them. Proto-Semitic. So if we go down like the Northwest Semitic languages, the Ugartic, cuneiform Abjad, the Canaanite languages, Phoenician, Punic, Moabite, Edom, Ammon, Hebrew. If you know your geography, you will see this is all one area. This is the Levant moving this way. And then you have the Aramaic, Imperial, Modern, and Middle Aramaic, and that was used by the Nabataeans, Palmyrene, Sarmatians, and the Jewish Aramaic, which is the same area. And then Eastern Aramaic split into Syriac, which again was used in that same area, and Mandean, which was used in the Iraq area. And then when we look at the South Semitic languages, if you go down, we have the Ethiopian languages, Ge'ez, and then Amharic. That's the language I was talking about, Amharic, right? And then Tigrina and Tigri. They are a Semitic family. So there are similarities with Arabic, but quite distant, very distant, in fact. Some of these languages are like really distant, but they're a language family. And then, Northern Arabian languages are Thumudic, Lihyanite, Safietic, Hussein, and Arabic. And then the South Arabian would be Sabaean, Minaean, Katabaean, which we look at. In previous lectures, we've mentioned the southern kingdoms, right, who were not Arabs. They didn't identify as Arabs, and the Arabs make a mistake today when they teach the fact that they are Arabs. They're not Arabs, and their language was different, and their culture was different, and it's a totally a different community of people in the south. Here's another chart: Northwest Semitic, Syria and Palestine, Canaanite, 2nd century BC, Hebrew, Phoenician, Moabite, then Aramaic, 1st millennium BC. Old Aramaic inscriptions are from there. Classical Aramaic, which was used by the Hachemenish, the Achaemenid Persian Empire of Parsa, from the 7th century BC to the 2nd century BC. And then obviously the Christian era, West Aramaic, the Palestinian used for the Talmud. I'm guessing that was Palestinian Aramaic. Midrashim. Southwest Semitic is Arabic and Ethiopian. Old South Arabia, Ge'ez, and Arabic also. And then on the right hand side, Arabic, Aramaic, Syriac. This is the liturgical language for the churches there in Syria to this day. Babylonian Talmud and Samaritan Targum are written in this language. And then up northeast Semitic, which is Mesopotamia, on the right hand side, Iraq. It replaced non-Semitic Sumerian, because Sumerian wasn't an Arabic language, wasn't a Semitic language, and those people were not Semites. They were a different race. We don't know what race they were. And we still have them in the DNA of the Marsh Arabs. The Marsh Arabs are a completely different culture than settled Arabs or Bedouin Arabs. They look different, their culture is different, they live in houseboats. And what's very amazing is if you look at their houses today, they're made from reed in a specific style. And if you look at cuneiform tablets from 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, you'd see the same house. SubhanAllah, nothing has changed. Saddam Hussein did great damage to them. He destroyed the marshes because he had a problem with them, wanted to flush out his enemies. And in their DNA, there is still Sumerian blood. So the non-Semitic Sumerian, Northeast Semitic replaced it with Akkadian and Babylonian and Assyrian. And this is clearly, you can see this on the right-hand side. West Semitic, Central Semitic, modern South Arabian. So from Central Semitic came Arabic. And remember we mentioned the languages of the Bedouins, like the nomads. So we had Arabic, Thamantic, Didantic, Ancient South Arabian. Arabic, if we further break it down, we have Northern Old Arabian, which is Nabataean Arabic and Safietic. And then we have Mahdi Arabic, which went down into Classical Arabic, and then Old Hijazi, parts of that became Classical Arabic. And then we have the Quranic consonantal text, which became fixed, crystallized. Here's an image of various scripts. On the top we have dispersed Old North Arabian. That's what it looked like. Underneath that is Thamanatic language. That's what it looks like. It's from right to left. Underneath you have Thamudic D and Thamudic C. Two different languages. Looks quite exotic. And then there's Thamudic B in the middle and Safayetic in the bottom. At the top you have Dumayatic. So Dumayatic, Safayetic, and Thamudic were a lot of inscriptions are written in those languages. It was the Arabs, the nomads, should we say, not Arabs. Well, actually, these were kind of proto-Arabs, Arab type people would write in this language. And then Didantic, and then another one of Didantic, and then Hismaic. Look at that, wiggly, wiggles everywhere. Where does it start? Where does it finish? It starts, if it starts at the top, it's gone this way and gone round and like a snake. If it starts at the bottom, it's done the same thing. And then Hasiatic. So these were languages that predated the Arabic script. Just to make one point clear, because people do tend to forget, non-Arabs in the south, the four main kingdoms we had the kingdom of Aksum. It features in the Seerah. We'll mention that in later lectures. We have the Himyarites, Kataban, Saba, and Hadramaut. The four principal kingdoms of the south. None of them were Arabs. None of them spoke Arabic, and their script was totally different, and their writing style was Musnad. Only four main languages spoken in Yemen, but in many various dialects. Even today in Asir, there are echoes. Asir is in the southern end of Hijaz by Tihama, very close to Jazan and Nagran, which is Najran today, and then Yemen, very close. Right? So even today, there's echoes of that old language in their dialect when they speak. It can be heard. And it's not everybody can easily understand them if they start to speak in the way they do in their villages and mountain areas. So in the south we had the Sabaeans, the Queen of Sheba, Saba, Minaeans, Katamanians, and the Hadramatic. They spoke variants of this Sabaean kind of language. The languages found were as distinctly related to Arabic as Hebrew and Aramaic to Arabic. Right, so those languages are so far from Arabic as Arabic is to Hebrew today, or Arabic to Aramaic. So Arabic was missing from the Yemen, and Arabs were missing from there. Right, so this flies in the face of what the classical Arabs would have you believe, that they all originated from the south. Right, so we will look through language and through culture and through many other ways how the southern Arabians were not Arabs. And the Arabs, in fact, didn't originate from there. Their language evolution clearly points, and later when we look at their gods and everything, clearly points to a northern origin. Right? So today we're going to concentrate on the language, and I want everybody to think about this. Right? We don't just blindly follow narratives because they're there. We critically engage with them because nobody's perfect. And it's okay to ask questions. Up to the 6th century, late Nabataean Arabic was used in the north of Yemen. So it makes sense because pockets of late Nabataean Arabic which had drifted up from the north ended up in the south, and then it obviously morphed into the classical Arabic that we knew now. The classical Arabic, another misconception that people have is the whole Arabian Peninsula happened to speak classical Arabic. It's like saying everybody spoke Shakespearean English. No, they didn't. It's like saying everybody speaks received pronunciation as an accent. No, they don't in England. Or it's like saying everybody in Pakistan speaks Urdu. No, they don't. Probably only 20% of the population. The rest speak their own dialects, right? And Urdu is the language of the educated class. Speaking in RP is a sign of middle class education in England. Likewise, the classical Arabic was the language of the poets, right? They needed that to formulate their poetry, and it was understood by poets all over. It was the highest register of the Arabic language, right? Arabic poetry and the Qur'an. Whereas the everyday language was just like you see all over the world, various disparate dialects, right? Some close to each other, some not so close to each other. So we have many various scripts of various languages today that to this day we don't know their sound values. We don't know how they sound. Now, one of the most interesting ways of how we know how to translate some of these languages is if we just go back a bit and look at what happened in Egypt. We had what the Arabs would call the languages of the birds, which was the Egyptian language. The Egyptians had died out. Nobody could read and write ancient Egyptian anymore, and the Greek was the language in the area. Probably Roman, later on Roman, and then when the Muslims came, it was Arabic. That language has died out. But they found a a plaque called the Rosetta Stone. It's a big stone, and the three languages are in there. It is ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, then the cursive hieratic form, and then Greek. Now, the wonder of Greek is, as opposed to these ancient languages, is Greek is written fully. So there's consonants and vowels, whereas with the Semitic languages, there's no voweling, which makes it hard to, even if you could understand some of the letters, it's very difficult to know. Actually, there's nothing you can do. It's because of Greek that we know Greek, and we can look at certain signs on, say, hieroglyphics and Greek and join them up and then know the sound values and then understand that language. That's how ancient Egyptian was understood. Now, the same thing applies for these languages. Some inscriptions were found bilingual inscriptions with the ancient language and then Greek on the same rock face. So the person who was writing wrote in two languages. Because Greek comes with consonants and Greek comes with vowels, we understand that. You look at corresponding letter patterns, and voila, you are able to understand somebody whose voice was heard 2000 years ago and it died because the language died, and 2000 years later you're hearing his voice again. Subhanallah. That's how a lot of these languages were understood. So we have examples. We know Aramaic, it's ancient language, very famous language, used by all empires in that region. It's still spoken in some villages in Syria today. There's Aramaic, there's Syriac, there's Pedantic, Dumaetic, Hismaic, Safiatic, Thamantic, and Tamudic. These languages we know, but the other ones, there are many that we still don't know. That's why they're not mentioned as well here. Here's another legend, but this is by Ahmad Jalad. Safiatic was, which is like very close to Arabic, was spoken in Bilad al-Sham, right? So that's like Syria proper today, Jordan, and like the Levant, we call it Palestine, Lebanon. Hismaitic again is spoken in that same area, Thamudic B, C, and D, and then Didantic, by the town of Didan, and by Yathrib it was Thamudic again because the people of Thamud are quite close to there. They just named that. It doesn't mean that they spoke it. And going into the south, you can see it's different languages. Empty quarters, empty for a reason because nobody lived there, no inscriptions found. It's just desert. Here's another way of looking at it. This is a stele or a plaque of the South Arabian god called Al-Maka. Inscription addressed to the Sabaean national god. This is Old Arabic Musnad script. So this is Old Arabic spoken using the Musnad script. You can test this for yourself. You can download a key of the Musnad, and then you can translate the letters into its corresponding Arabic counterparts and see if you can understand what's being said. Because it's Old Arabic, it's quite close to modern Arabic, and the sounds, the way it was articulated, we don't know, right? We can only kind of attempt through the Greek, and it's obviously for sure it must have been very different. And but the problem is, it's because there's no voweling, it's going to be incredibly difficult for you to attempt that translation without context, right? So without knowing what kind of people would write, why would they write? If you don't know this, then you're just poking in the dark. But if you know this, that these were the kinds of people, it was people that were traveling, asking their gods for prayers, or it was asking to be remembered, or stuff like that. For sure, it will sound different than what it sounds now. But if there's no context, as I was saying, if there's no context, you won't know what's being said. This is the famous Zabur inscription, and you can see a cursive form of the script being used on here. Again, here's a legend. The South Arabian languages, Sabiatic, Katibanic, Hadramatic, Minyan are in the south. and Aramaic and Hebrew are in the north, and Arabic is in the Hijaz area, Old South Arabian spoken, moving down into that area. The South Arabian script was used for all languages in the south, and it's clearly seen on the monument. So whatever languages were in the south, whether it was South Old Arabian, whether it was any of those ancient languages there, they used that famous script because it was, as a script of empire for the south, and it was a script that was used, which is very different. The north was very, very different. Most writing was casual. It was done by passing nomads. And what's very interesting is we have to ask the question, how did these nomads learn to write and read, right? By wayfarers, some of them, like businessmen or people of considerable wealth that would have had access to education, which was very rare at that time. And a large number of scripts were used, right? So the defining hallmark between the north and south is in the south, there was just Musnad used as a script, but the north we saw a plethora of different scripts. Tiny messages on rocks like personal names don't give us much information. Most of what's written in the north, in those rocks that we mentioned, is just tiny bits of information. I, son of so and so, son of so and so, was here. Remember me as you pass. Or may God X, Y, and Z protect me on my journey. Simple things like that, right? So you cannot glean much information from tiny things like this, but as a whole, and then with outside information and then inference and a lot of detective work, you can build considerable bits of information on their lifestyles and what kind of a culture and a civilization these people were, as opposed to just being taught that no, it's just a blank canvas. Also, it does make it difficult for classification. So let's just say you've got two different languages. They're using one specific script, but you can see that the languages are like sister languages, right? Say Arabic and Aramaic. I'm just giving a classic example here. They've said something, and it's either identical in both languages, so you would never know that it's a different language, or it's very, very different. So then you could end up placing it in the wrong category. So these are the kind of problems that you have. So ancient North Arabia. So we have Thymanetic. This is the oasis of Taima, which is northern Hijaz, right? The oasis of Taima. Didantic, which is the oasis of Dadan, Duma in the ancient mentioned in the ancient texts, and Dumayatic, which is again the oasis of Duma, and dispersed North Arabian texts from Mesopotamia and other places not classifiable as one of the above scripts. Safietic, which is the Syrio-Jordanian basalt desert, northern Saudi Arabia, isolated finds everywhere, right? Then the Hismaid family, again look, southern Jordan, northern South Arabia. Thamudic, B, C, and D, North and Central Arabia. So we're moving down now, right? And then you get Southern Thamudic, which is Southwestern Arabia, and then Arabic. These 5, 6 I just mentioned were the desert North Arabian languages. The oasis ones are quite high up because that's where the oases are. So from Yathrib and above, you start to get oases. Different climate, different topography, slightly different culture of the people, the top languages. And then you have the Hijazi, the middle desert kind of people around Hijaz, Mecca, Medina, and environs, north and south, these languages. And then Old Arabic is attested in the pre-Islamic al dialects. So what is this? We're talking about al. So al is a hallmark of Old Arabic. It's attested in various scripts, but it's mostly concentrated in the north and the southern Levant. So then you have to ask yourself, the Arabs claim to come from the south. The people in the south are not Arabs, never claim to be. Their language is different, and even Arabs then understood that the languages of the Himyarites and those people are vastly different from their own language. And the definite article, al, which is a hallmark of the Arabic language or Proto-Arabic language, most of the inscriptions, a large number of them, are concentrated in one area in the north and southern Levant. So northern Arabia, southern Levant, right? So it gives you an idea that they came from the north as opposed to the south. Safaitic. Safaitic is very close to Arabic, right? So in the tree we looked at it. So far up to date, 50,000 recorded texts. This slide presentation is about 4 years old now. So the number's probably doubled that now. It's an ancient North Arabian alphabet. It's written in ancient North Arabian. It's from at least the 2nd century BCE to the 4th century CE. 28 letters with no vowels or diphthongs and can be carved in any direction. So you can go this way, this way, this way, this way, and this way, and look back this way. It was written by the nomads who used to pass. We saw examples of this. It was replaced by the Nabataean Arabic and finally the Hijazi Arabic. So these are the letter shapes, right? So these are the corresponding letter shapes of the Safaitic script. See, I would confuse some of these letters with musnad. This is what makes it so difficult, right? Where you really need to know what you're doing with languages. Who saw that swastika? Safaitic, this is it written, carved. This could be up to 2,000 years old. And it just goes everywhere. This is from Mafraq, which is in the desert, the Jordanian desert, and it shows a Bactrian camel, which is very interesting. The dromedary was used as a mode of transport by Arabs, by desert Arabs. The Bactrian camel was from Central Asia and it was bigger and more suited to the cold and everything that's in that area. And yet they knew it in Mafraq. Obviously, trade traveled from China to Rome, and they are sitting astride the trade routes, and trade went back this way as well. And from the down, we looked at it before, went down up as well. Talmudic is a name invented by the 19th century scholars for large numbers of inscriptions in ancient North Arabia, which have not yet been properly studied. It does not imply that they were carved by members of the ancient tribe of Thamud. It's further broken into A, B, C, D, and E. This is what Talmudic script looks like. Carved in Wadi Rum in Jordan. Then we have Old Arabic. The pre-Islamic Arabic is often referred to as Old Arabic. So this is the Arabic at the time just before Rasulullah by scholars. The most obvious characteristics of the Old Arabic is the use of the definite article lah, right? The reason it says lah here is because in ancient scripts, in those scripts, there's no voweling, so there's no a, right? But you would know it's there. Just like if you read Arabic today without the harakat, someone who's proficient in Arabic will still know how to decline the nouns and everything because he knows what he's reading. Likewise, they knew what they were reading. So it's the precursor of the classical Arabic Allah, right? So when you pronounce la, there's a sound that comes out slightly before. You have to say la. Before that, you say al, and it just became al afterwards, right? So I think it was just pronounced la, and then in classical Arabic became al. Old Arabic seems to have remained a purely spoken language until the late 5th and early 6th centuries, right? So it wasn't written, it was just a spoken language. So when they would write this language, they would have to use a different script, which means that no specific script was associated with it before that period. Thus, on the rare occasions when it was written, the script associated with the local language of prestige was used, South Arabian in the southern half of the peninsula. So the language of prestige in the extreme south would have been Musnad, as we mentioned. In the extreme north would have been Aramaic. So they were using the Aramaic script, and whatever script was there available for them, that was everybody would understand. The Nabataean at Hijr, and so at Hijr they would use the Nabataean script. At En Afdad, which is in Palestine in the Negev desert, they would use, and at Al-Namara, a form of Eastern Aramaic at Maliha on the Oman Peninsula, and early Arabic mainly in Syria. A bit confusing what I wrote there. Right, so images of al-Jamal inscription. This is a stone inscription, and this language here is Nabataean. It's Nabataean language, which is a form of early Arabic, Nabataean Arabic. right? So this is it translated. Dhunu, Dhafsu, Qabr, Far, Bar, Sule, Rabu, Jadimat, Mamlak, Tanukh. Don't know how it's pronounced. Tanukh seems interesting. Tanukh was a kingdom in that region. Mamlakatu Tanukh makes sense there if that is correct. Bar is Aramaic, which would become Ibn or Bin in proper Arabic. So as Arabic evolved, Arabic actually evolved, the script evolved from Aramaic into Nabataean script, and the Nabataeans at some point started to use more and more Arabic in their writing, and then it just evolved into the modern Arab, the old Aramaic script, Hijazi script, and then the classical script. So they would still write, even if they were using Sephiatic or Nabataean script, they would still write Bar, which is Aramaic for sun. Interesting. Again, here is another tracing of that of there's Nabatean, there's the Nabatean script. So some parts of it do look like Arabic, right? Some parts do look like Arabic, but at this stage it's still not Arabic. This is Nabatean script. So these are the letters that changed and became the Arabic letter. Which of these letters can we see that looks something like Arabic? G, right? That's the start of the Jim. You can see that there. H, like a H. Wow, the W, wow. Ta, ta looks like looks like the ta in Arabic, and you can go through this in your own time if it interests you. Here's some references and interesting videos that you can watch on YouTube if you want to learn more about this. I put a note there because I teach online Seerah as well, and then these are notes for my students, myself when I'm teaching the students. So here we have another legend, a key. So there's early Arabic. There's the alphabets there. Early Arabic, right? So some of them make sense, some of them don't. Then there's Sabayak Musnad. Then there's Phoenician. Then there's the Aramaic, and then there's early Greek. That's how they all compare. This is the famous Namara inscription. It's a 4th century inscription, Christian inscription, dated securely to AD 328. One of the earliest examples of the Arabic language. So we can start to see the evolution of Arabic now, right? Moving closer to the time of Rasulullah. The inscription is written in Nabataean Aramaic, right? So it's Nabataean Aramaic at that time, but it's Arabic as in spoken, right? That's what's been written. Has some ligatures which show transition towards Arabic, used bar instead of bin as mentioned here, right? This is it here now. So if we were to read it, is it في نفس عمر الكيسي بار عمر مالك العرب كله ذو أسر أتنان ومالك السدين وصمت وملوكم والصرب. This is what's written here. So that's Arabic at the bottom. At the top, you're looking at the inscription by Imrul Qais. Imrul Qais was one of the Luhmite kings. So he claimed here to be master of all the Arabs. At that time, there was war going on between the Luhmites and the Kinda in the south, which is pretty interesting to look at as well. So maybe it was a conquest and he had enlarged his domain and he calls himself leader of all the Arabs, king of all the Arabs. But what's most interesting for us here is to see the Nabataean script, right? Or is this Aramaic? What did they say here? It's written in Nabataean Aramaic, right? So which is a hybrid of Arabic and Aramaic. Nabataean Aramaic, and that's how it would sound. So it sounds close to Arabic, but the script is vastly different from the modern script that we know today. The translation of the text is, this is the funerary monument of Imrul Qais, son of Amr, king of the Arabs. and his title of honor was Master of Asad and Nizr. And he subdued the Asadis, and they were overwhelmed together with their kings. And he put to flight Mudhij thereafter and came driving them to the gates of Najran, the city of Shamar, and he subdued Ma'ad and dealt gently with the nobles of the tribes and appointed them viceroys, and they became cliquiarchs for the Romans, and no king has equaled his achievements. Thereafter, he died in the year 223 on the seventh day of Kaslul. Oh, the good fortune of those who were his friends. So this is a translation of it. This is the Zabid inscription. Now, the Zabid inscription is a interesting because it's at a time that's like very close to the time of Rasul. This is like 50 years, 60 years before Rasul was born. 570, this is 68 years before Rasul was born. I hope my maths is correct. Zabid inscription, right? It's a trilingual inscription. So it has Greek, Syriac, and Arabic, right? So this is the Arabic that would have been around at the time of Rasul, an early form of written Arabic that had not crystallized into its structure today. So there's variance in the writing style. You get different ways of writing that carried on even into the early period of Islam. So what's interesting is it's a Christian inscription. How do we know this? There's a cross bang in the middle. This actually celebrates, this was found on the door lintel. It's still there. It celebrates the conscription of something, or Saint Sergius, and 2 or 3 people with the name Sergius wanted to be part of this, and they signed it off as well. What we're interested in is if we look at the bottom, we can see the name Al-Ilah. Al-Ilah. The Muslims, the Arabic speaking proper would say Allah as the name of God. This is a proper noun. It's not describing, it's not an adjective, the God description of whatever God's name is. No. Allah is a proper noun of God. The Christians were known to say Al-Ilah. Al-Ilah means the same thing. Allah in Aramaic, and then Elohim in Hebrew. So you can see at the bottom here, Al-Ilah, the bottom right side, the carving that's been done, it's been written out on the bottom as well, right? On the right hand side, the top line, and there's a cross there as well, right? So Al-Ilah. What it says after that, I don't know, but there are translations of it. And this is what it reads in the translation. So it's 512. This is dated securely using the Greek text. It's a trilingual inscription in Greek, Syriac, and Arabic. This inscription was discovered in Zabid, Syria by Weisstein and first published by Sachu. The text covers a lintel over the door of the martyrion of Saint Sergei. The Arabic, though, does not translate the Greek, but merely listing 6 names, not all of which are mentioned in Greek. This is the earliest inscription to mention Al-Ilah, the God. This is also seen a few decades later in an inscription from Udubatul Jandal near Ajot, that's in the north. It says, with the help of God, Al-Ilah, Sergius, son of Amat, Manaf, and Tobi, son of Imrul Qais, and Sergius, son of Sa'ad, and Sitr, and Surey. This is in Zabid, south of Aleppo in Syria. The end of that inscription, the first 4 lines are in Aramaic and the last 2 in Arabic. This is another famous inscription found, right? So we have Aramaic and then 2 in Arabic, and it's written in the Nabataean alphabet, right? So here's a transition. This helps you a lot when you find something like this, because we know Nabataean script, we know Arabic, and we know Aramaic. Early Arabic and Aramaic and Nabataean. And then here it's just all there, so you can translate it. And Nabataean Arabic the alphabet always fascinates me, because if you look at this alphabet, it looks like it's all over the place, but people actually can read this. It says it's one of the 2 Arabic inscriptions written in the Nabataean alphabet. The other one is the Namara inscription of 328, which we showed you, right? This was in the Negev desert. This is in 125 CE. The inscription contains 6 lines, first 4 of which are in Aramaic and the last 2 are in Arabic. It is the earliest piece of Arabic written in the Nabataean script so far discovered, antedating the famous Namara inscription of 328 by about 2 centuries. This inscription is written in Old Arabic. The Arabic article lah occurs as limautu. According to Belami, the Arabic portion is composed of verses of poetry. He asserts that this inscription shows us that not only was Arabic poetry being composed around the turn of the 1st century, second centuries, but also that it was much like the poetry that was familiar to us from 4 centuries later. The Arabic part of the inscription consists of 3 hemistitches in a tawil, the most commonly used of the classical meters. This is amazing information, right? So the Arabs had bihar, they had seas. These are meters of poetry that they would compose their texts within those meters. And Arabic and poetry, especially Arabic poetry, came to its zenith about 1 or 2 centuries before the time of Rasulullah. But yet, this shows us that 500 years prior to that, they were using these bihars. So this is the lineage of Arabic poetry. It goes back quite far. So obviously, it become 500 years later, it become at its pinnacle when the Qur'an was revealed. The Arabic part of the inscription reads, "For obeyed us works without reward or favor, and he, when death tried to claim us, did not let it claim us. For when a wound of ours festered, he did not let us perish." This is in Palestine. And then we have the Rukash inscription. On the left-hand side looks like it's Nabataean script, and the right-hand side looks like it's Thamudic. Here is it here again. Very beautifully carved, if this is the original. And this is the Arabic here. Dhukabru Sin'a Kabu Bar. You can see Bar here in the first line. Son of Harsat Lirakush Barth Abdu Mantu. Here we can see Abdu Mantu. Ummuhu Wahiya Halkat Fil Hajru. It would be Hajar, but the waw is just the language evolved afterwards and they were taken the waw off. Sinamat was Sintain is a date here. Waterin Berich Tamuz Wala'an. Curse, there's a curse invoked as well. Mara ilma min Yashna Qabru. So Yashna Qabr, we can see the word Qabr here. But look how it's spelled. Dawa min Yaftahu Yaftahi. ومن يفتحي حتى والد واللعن من يقبر علي منه. They used to curse, so whoever harms this grave, or whoever does so and so, may he be cursed. It's like the Egyptians would do the same thing as well. So the recently reinterpreted Rakash inscription by Healy and Smith, this was held by them as the earliest pre-Islamic Arabic inscription corresponding to 267 CE. This inscription also shows diacritical points for Ra, Da, Sha. Amazing. So now they're using diacritical marks for these letters. And even after this date, it wasn't standardly used. Very rarely, I would say. Also note that there is a short summary in Thamudic written vertically to the right of the inscription here, right? So that's Thamudic on the right and it's Nabataean Arabic on the left. So the Rakash inscription, dated 267 CE, there has been some disagreement about the nature of this inscription. Cantu categorize it as Nabataean text. Braidlaw also classified it as Nabataean text. However, she notes that the text is noteworthy for its many Arabisms. O'Connor describes it as an eccentric mixture of Nabataean and Arabic. Blue Label is a broader text. However, Haley and Smith say that this is an Arabic text with Aramaic archaisms. They have hailed it as the earliest dated Arabic document. The salient point of this inscription is that it has diacritical points on the letters Ra, Da, Sha, Sheen. The diacritical points on Sheen and Ra are not used consistently. The Arabic article La, which is Al, occurs twice, once in the name, the place name, this is Al-Hajr, Al-Hijr, Li-Hijr, Hijru. Hijr are Ra, and after the Ra they put a Waw, which disappeared in later Arabic. Hagar, because they wouldn't pronounce the J was in later in Arabic, it was the J would have been G, Li-Higru, Li-Higru. Once before, a common noun, La Qabru, the grave. Again, after the Ra, you can see the Waw, right? The inscription reads, "This is the grave. This is a grave Qabr, has taken care. KBH has taken care of it for his mother, Rokesh bint A. She died in Al-Hijr in the year 162 in the month of Tammuz. May the Lord of the world curse anyone who desecrates this grave and opens it up, except his offspring. May he also curse anyone who buries someone in the grave and then removes him from it. May who buries be cursed. The date is 267. So we can see that the curses, we identified them when we read the Arabic corresponding of it, text to it, and Al-Hijr, Higru, and Qabru, Qabr. This is in Midai Salih, which is Al-Hijr. This is the Haran inscription. Okay, so my bad. This is the inscription that's on it's a lintel, not the Namara inscription or the other one, the Sir Jays' inscription, Zabad inscription. This is the one, the Haran inscription, a bilingual Greek-Arabic inscription commemorating the building of the martyrdom of Saint John, dated 568. So this is 2 years before Rasulullah's birth, 570. From Haran, southern Syria. The text is nowadays part of a modern house. So this is the lintel, above the doorway. You can see the doorway, and then the lintel. Someone has it in their house. This is a Greek Arabic inscription, right? You can see the Greek at the bottom and you can see the Arabic at the top, and you can see now that the Arabic is close to the Arabic that we know today. It may not be 100% fixed, but you can make out a lot of that Arabic if you saw it as a tracing. This is Jabal Rum inscription. This looks like Arabic, very close to Arabic as well. Let's have a look at what this is. The Jabal Rum inscription, it is the second oldest so far dated inscription in the Arabic alphabet. The reading is after Bellamy. Also note that there are 2 short notes in Talmudic written vertically to the left of the inscription and the third line. So he dates it between 328, 350. The salient point of this inscription is that it has diacritical points for the letters Jim and Ya and Nun. There are 2 dots, other dots below the space for another Ya, which is however not written. He doesn't agree with this. Bellamy says that the grammar in this inscription is straightforward classical Arabic. Makes sense because it's the time of classical Arabic now. He adds that the language in this inscription is closer to modern Arabic than the language of Shakespeare is to modern English. So with the English language today, Shakespearean language is removed. It's very difficult for us to understand it today. Chaucer, we can barely understand Chaucer, right? Or if you look at the Beowulf poem, it's not understandable. Whereas the Arabic language, before the Qur'an, by about 42 years. From that date to this date, it's the same thing. So Bellamy says that the grammar is straightforward Arabic. He adds that the language in this inscription is closer to modern Arabic. Like the Namara inscription of 328 CE, the presence of classical Arabic in this inscription validates the conservatism of the Arabic language. We would say this is because it's been preserved by God. For us, that's why. The inscription reads, I rose and made all sorts of money which no world-weary man has ever collected. I have collected gold and silver. I announce it to those who are fed up and unwilling. What a strange thing to write on your as an inscription for posterity. This is another inscription, a pre-Islamic Nabataean Arabic inscription from South Hima, north of Najran, dated 470 CE. This clearly is Christian. You can see the cross there. So this is dated 470 and this is readable to us, right? It's a very clear inscription with a cross, and it reads, Thaban, son of Malik, in the month of Baruch of the year 364. Notice the presence of the cross. It confirms the presence of Christianity in this region during the pre-Islamic era. The date is equivalent to 470 CE, i.e. 364 plus 105, the Bosra era. This is north of Najran, South Arabia. So we know Christianity was there in that area. Here we have a pre-Islamic Nabataean Arabic inscription from Hima in 513 CE. That also is pretty readable. I should have tracings over here, right? I would need more clues to read this, but when I looked at it, let's see. It says Qais, son of Kidash, in the month of Mutamir. Right, so there's a cross at the bottom of the inscription, and it's located in Hima. Right, so where's the cross? Is it the bottom left? There's a cross there. The name is Qais, son of Kidash. Qais. I'm lost. And the Haran inscription, a pre-Islamic Arabic inscription from 568 CE. So we have Greek and we have Arabic here, and we have a cross there. And if we look at the bottom, even though there's no diacritics, we can say Ana. That would be Ana something something kullu something, and then the cross is Christian. It is a Greek Arabic bilingual inscription of the martyrdom of Saint John. So I Sarahil. There we go. There's the sin and the R and the Ha. Sarahil. Ya Lam, you can see that. Ana Sarahil ibn Talimu. Ta. Okay, I thought that was a Ka. Talimu. There we can see that also. Built this martyrium in the year 463 after the destruction of Khaybar by a year. Greek, and then this is the Greek. Interesting. This is in Haran in Syria, the Syrian area. Dumat al-Jundal inscription. This is North Arabia, pre-Islamic Nabataean Arabic inscription from 548-549. That's readable as well. The translation of the inscription is given below. May be remembered, may God al-Ilah remember Hag bin son of Salama, Salima. The inscription is carved on the sandstone boulder. It is the only text dated to the 6th century from northwest Arabia, and by the earliest dated Islamic one. The Zubair inscription dated 24, which we'll look at. The text of the inscription is clear except for the confusion between the ba and the noon in the author's name due to a lack of dotting and the doubtful presence of bir in the month of at the beginning of line 5. This is the second earliest dated pre-Islamic inscription that mentions Al-Ilah, the God, the earliest one being the Zabid inscription from 512. Just like the one from Zabid, the presence of Al-Ilah here and the cross suggests that the writer of this inscription was most likely written by a Christian. Notice the repetition of the word remember written twice, once as dhikr in Nabataean Arabian characters and once as dhikr in Arabic script at the beginning of line 2. So he's using Nabataean Arabic and he's using Arabic script. So I can see Al-Ilah here, and you can see dhikr. Is it dhikr? This is another pre-Islamic. Here's an inscription that mentions, this looks like Safietic. It's mentioning Yathrib, the town of Yathrib. And where is the Dumat al-Jandal inscription? This is it here, we've done it. So the inscription reads, Kad bin Aslam who came from Yathrib. Greetings, Kad bin Aslam who came from Yathrib. The Yathrib is known as Medina today after the advent of Islam, has a long history of settlement. Ancient sources mention this town a few times. Perhaps the earliest mention of it comes from an inscription found in Haran of the Babylonian king Nabonidus. Nabonidus is in his Assyrian language, but Nabonid as we know it. Nebu-Nidus. Nebu is the name of the god. It's a prefix, and then his name is Onidus. Nebu-Naed. This is the Greek rendition that says Yathribu among the towns of the northwest Arabia. Nebu-Naed was in that region for 10 years, trying to control the trade routes from Tamar and Didan and close to that area. So he mentioned it, and that would have been mentioned in the Aramaic script, the Assyrian language. Datable to the second half of the first millennium BCE, a Minani inscription. There's also a Minani inscription. The Minanians, who were the southern kingdoms, they had a trading colony up there, found in the ancient city of Ma'an. Records, Ma'an would be in Jordan today, right? Some form of registration of women from non-Minan land. The mentions too, originally from Yathrib. That's how they've spelt it there, without the vowels. Next on the list is the famous geography of Ptolemy that comes from the 2nd century CE, which mentions Yathriba, a town in Arabia Felix. So he's put it this town very far south. Arabia Felix is Happy Felix, which would have been the Yemen area, right? Yathrib is in the Hijaz, so it would not be in Arabia Felix, but he's put it there. It is mentioned again twice in the mid-6th century. The first mention comes from Aethripa by Stephanus Byzantius, who located it near Hegra, which is its proper location, Al-Hijr, Madain Saleh, Medina, would have been Yathrib, and Khaybar is close by. The second mention comes from the Sabine inscription of Abraha, a South Arabian ruler, written shortly after 552. We look at this character. He's written an inscription, most probably in the Muslim script, in the Himyarite Sabiic language. In this text, he announces the establishment of his authority over Yathrib, amongst other areas of the northern peninsula. In this long line of mentions of Yathrib, this undated Nabataean inscription near Tabuk is interesting because it is written in a script that was a forerunner of the Arabic script. The proper name of the person with consonants, Ka'ad, is uncertain, so we don't know how it sounded because we've only just got the consonants there, and hence left as it is. So it's written in a script that was the forerunner of the Arabic script. This looks like Safietic to me. Arabic graffito from Muthallath in 643. So that looks like clear Arabic now. It's written. Salama wrote in 320. Kataba, so at the top you can see Kataba, Salama, Salma. Sin, Lam, Mim, Ha, we can see there. Kataba, we can see. And then Thalath wa Ishrin. Thuluth wa Ishrin. 320, we can clearly see that there. Tombstone of Abdul Rahman ibn Khair al-Hajri. This is now 652. So this is after the Rasul passed away. We can see the Arabic now, right? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Li Abdul Rahman bin Khair al-Hajri. Allahumma khfir lahu wa udkhiluhu fi rahmati minnak wa atna minhu astaghfir lahu idha qara'a hadha al-katab. So he's saying that anybody who reads it, ask Allah to bless him. Wa kul amin wa kataba hadha. Li kataba fi jumdi, then the date, I think. Kharmin Sinnat Ahdi wa Thalathin. Yeah, then he's given a date on when this was written. The translation of the inscription is, in the name of Allah, the merciful and compassionate, this tomb belongs to Abdul Rahman ibn Khair al-Hajri. O Allah, forgive him and make him enter into thy mercy and make us go with him. To the passerby, when reading this inscription, ask pardon for him. Say Ameen. This inscription was written in Jumada 2 of the year 130. This is in the Cairo Museum. An inscription mentioning witnessing by 3 disciples of Prophet Muhammad. So 3 people are mentioned here. This is 652 in Jerusalem. This is 22 years after the passing, 20 years after the passing of Rasulullah. The 3 companions are so it says Shahidahu Abdul Rahman bin Auf, famous companion. Az-Zuhri wa Abu Ubaidah bin al-Jarrah, another famous companion, and Wakatabahu, who wrote it, Muawiyah. Muawiyah was known as a scribe. He was one of the scribes, and he had carved this. Sina Athintain wa Thalathin, 653. 652. Oh, this was of the Muslim year, yeah. This is an amazing document to have. Amazing inscription mentioning 3 companions. Allahu Akbar. In the name of God, the Beneficent, the Merciful. We can see that at the top line, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, we can clearly make that out. The protection of God and guarantee of His Messenger, and witnessed it, Abdul Rahman bin Auf, Az-Zuhri, Abu Ubaidah bin al-Jarrah, and its writer Muawiyah in the year 32. Now look at the statement here, and the protection of God and the guarantee of His Messenger. That's some Islamic denominations would be turning in their grave and having heart attacks with this statement here. But the companions were mentioning stuff like this. So who are they to pass takfir on us today? Another tangent, nothing to do with our lesson, but it's interesting to think about this as a point. So this was unearthed at the southwest corner of the Haram al-Sharif in Jerusalem during excavations in 1968. This is a plaster copy. The original was destroyed under the auspices of those tasked with its conservation. No surprises there. The inscription is not an epitaph but appears to be a legal document suggesting shahadatuhu, like a witnessing. There are quite a few interesting highlights of this inscription. Firstly, the mention dhimmat Allah or dhimmat Rasul. This is the earliest mention of this phrase. As for the phrase dhimmat Allah, it is mentioned about 3 decades later. This is some information here. First of the 2 persons and companions. Interesting. An inscription mentioning the murder of Uthman bin Affan in 656. So we have an inscription mentioning the murder of the 3rd Caliph of Islam. Ana Qais لكتاب أبوه كثير لعن الله من قتل عثمان ابن عفان ومن حد قتله فقتله. So may Allah, there's la'na upon the killers of Uthman ibn Affan. وَمِنْ أَحَدْ قَتْلَهُ. So I am Qais, the scribe of Abu Qutayr, curse of God on those who murdered Uthman ibn Affan and those who have led to the killing without mercy. So this is the earliest inscription discovered with the political implications or a dimension. The author was shocked by the murder of Uthman and invoked God's wrath on the assassins. He also used a slightly modified phrase from the Qur'an, قتلوا تقتله, to show his intense disapproval of the general state of affairs. This is in Taima, northern past Medina. It's the northern end of Hijaz. This is an inscription by Muawiyah, the Caliph Muawiyah, in 678 on the commemoration of the building of a dam. Right, so can the Arabic be read? The name Allah can be seen there. Lihum, Allah. It's difficult to read. If we look at the inscription here, this dam belongs to the servant of God Muawiyah. هذا الصد بملك something Allah Muawiyah. Servant of God. Should say li'abd Allah Muawiyah. That can be seen on the first line. Commander of the believer. Amir al-Mu'mineen. We can see that there. Abdullah bin Sakhr Bilted. Abdullah bin Sakhr. So look at the noon there. The noon actually looks like an rah. And bin, ba and the noon, in Arabic bin. In Aramaic, that's bar, ba and the ra, right? So that looks like bar, but it's actually Arabic bin by this time. With the permission of Allah in the year 58. Lisana wa Hamsir. Can't get that date. Allah pardon servant of God Muawiyah. Hum aghfir Abdullah Muawiyah. So this is readable now, right? This is clearly readable for people who wrote this. The use of consonantal points for ba, nun, tha, kha, fa, and ta. Compare it with another dam inscription from the time of Muawiyah. This establishes beyond doubt that in the 6th decade of the Hijrah, certain letters were already pointed. So we can see the consonantal, we can see the diacritics now on certain letters here. This is another inscription. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. هذا الصد لعبد الله معاوية. This is the same thing, right? أمير المؤمنين اللهم بارك له في رب السماوات والأرض بنا أبو رداد مولى عبد الله بن عباس بحول الله وقوة وقام عليه كثيرين بسلد وأبو موسى. This is the text here. I don't know how well I read it. An inscription mentioning Muawiyah ibn Abu Sufyan. This is another text mentioning him. The translation reads, this dam is on behalf of the servant of God Muawiyah, commander of the believers. O God, bless him for it, Lord of the heavens and the earth. Abu Radad, client of Abdullah ibn Abbas, built it by the power and strength of God, and Kathir ibn al-Sad and Abu Musa oversaw it. This is in Medina. This inscription here is in Medina, right? And here you can make it out again. In the name of God, the Compassionate Merciful, the first line, Bismillah, Rahman Rahim. No, I don't see that. Abdul Abd wa Rasuluh. What? Okay, so this is it. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, Abduk wa Rasuluk wa Adam Ajr. So this is what I was reading there, right? And I was thinking, why am I seeing that there? The first line. وأكرم نزله وكتب سعيد بن ذكوان مولى معاوية ابن أبي سفيان وهو يصل الله بفضل ما سأله عبد من الأولين والآخرين أن يرزقه رزقه شرف القتال في سبيله. So it reads, O Lord, send praise upon Muhammad, your servant and messenger, and increase his reward, and bless his station, and wrote Sa'ad bin Zakwan, Mawla of Muawiyah, Ibn Abi Sufyan, as he asked God with the best names, with which any servant of the first and last had asked, to bless him with the honor of fighting in his path. This is a unique inscription attested to the time of Muawiyah, the name of Muawiyah. There is no mention of his customary title Amir al-Mu'mineen in the early inscriptions. The inscription was discovered by the desert team Falak al-Shahr of Saudi Arabia. In 2013, this was discovered. We noted the absence of the title Amir al-Mu'mineen suggests that it was inscribed before Muawiyah became caliph. This seems sensible, as all other Muawiyah inscriptions from the first century AH mention this. In addition, the inscriber has plenty of room and his inscription was long, thus space considerations are unlikely to have played a role here. Additionally, the script appears characteristics of others from the first century. There are a number of items which caution a very early date. First, the script has many features that are incompatible with this time period. For example, medial ain appears like an inverted triangle. Basically, so even at this time, the script, there were still variations in the script. The skeletal script of the Quran was fixed, but the way certain vowels or something would have gone, the additions of like the vowels and everything would have not been fixed. Like the medial ain appears like an inverted triangle, which means that the script is looking like it's older than it really is. But then we have to caution against dates. So because they were different writing styles of Arabic still available at that time. Aramaic from Taima and Nabataean text. So this is Aramaic and a Nabataean text from Taima. And this is a legend of how all of those scripts look. From Syriac script, Imperial Aramaic, they're quite similar because they're just same language basically. Hebrew, Turkic, Phoenician, Arabic, Brahmi, Nabataean, Khorosti, and Mololi Aramaic. Yeah, you can compare the letters and see, like if you look at the Nabataean and then look at the Arabic, look at the Jim, look at the Gamal in Arabic, in Nabataean, and in Syriac. So what is Arabic? How do we define Arabic? What have we learnt so far? The Nabataeans spoke Arabic as their native language. We know this. However, they wrote in the Aramaic script as the dominant regional administrative language. Aramaic was the language of prestige, just as Greek, Classical Arabic, and Latin were. Arabic still is. The Roman annexation of Nabatea in 106 CE led to the decline of Aramaic. So in 106, the Romans annexed the Nabatean realm and incorporated it into their world. And as a result, that stopped the decline of Royal Aramaic being used by them. And because they were speaking Arabic, they started to then write in a script that slowly evolved into the Arabic script. Over time, the Nabateans started to add more and more Arabic into their Aramaic and also started to develop a cursive script. You only write cursive when you have access to a writing material. On rock, you're going to carve, it's going to be very, like jagged and like monumental, they call it, right? But cursive is when you have the materials, when you want to write fast. By the 4th century, all other scripts stopped being used, and it was by the 4th century, all the other scripts stopped being used, and this script of theirs was the only script that was being used that then developed into the Arabic script that we know today. Carried on developing up to the 6th century. Old Arabic, a precursor to this, was from the 1st century, had various dialects, accents, and variations. There were several dialects of Old Arabic, right? There was the Nabataean Arabic characterized by vowation on singular unbound triptones, gurhu, so like that, al-mawtu, higru, the vowation. There was Safietic, we had a look at that right in the beginning, characterized by feminine suffix pronoun a. So for example, the ta marabuta, right? So for example, amirun would be the male masculine form with the nunation at the end. Amiratun, right? The ha at the end, the ta marabuta, is Safietic characterizes that, right? And that's in Arabic, one of the dialects. And then Old Hijazi Arabic characterized by the demonstrative dhalika and an yaf'ala. Right? So, for example, when they say dhalika, that, right, that's characteristic of Old Hijazi, the Hijazi dialect. And then an yaf'ala. So that's a very unique way of saying something. So you're using the present tense to refer to something in the past tense. So you're not saying, for example, ana la fa'altu. Ana la fa'altu. I did not do. You will say ana lam af'al. Lam af'al. Lam af'al. I did not do. So you're using not with the present tense of the verb, but it denotes something in the past. Did not. Right? This is so you clearly see all of these three in classical Arabic, and then obviously by default in modern Arabic today. Right? So Old Arabic was many dialects, the Nabatean Arabic, Safatic dialect, Old Hijazi, all of them together became modern Arabic. The definite article diversity, the definite article was said in many ways. It was han, it was hal, it was it was ha, it was al, aham, is seen throughout Arabia. So in South Arabia, for example, in South Arabia, an, Rahmanan. So when we see the name Rahman in the South Arabian inscriptions, the Christian inscriptions, they say Rahmanan. So the al, we would say Ar-Rahman today, right? The definite article al, Ar-Rahman is the ra would be harf shamsiya. So Ar-Rahman. Whereas in another dialect, it would be Rahmanan. Rahman an. So the definite article will be placed at the back of the word. Rahmanan, like this. The difference is due to a number of dialects and no consistency, and that is why we see them in different scripts. So in different scripts, you'll see all of these forms being used. Hal, ha, al, la. The writing style in the Quran is different from the north, and the style suggests it is from the Hijaz region and reflects the writing school of Hijaz. The ending of the word Qur'an is related to Aramaic, and it is possible that the origin of the Quranic orthography is higher to the north. So the Quranic orthography could have a northern genesis, whereas the stylistic way of the Qur'an is Hijazi. The orthography could be north, but it's all Arabic. It's all Arabic. And where did Arabic evolve from? It came from the north. The Nabataeans were Arabs. The southern entities were not Arabs. And clearly the epigraphic record shows you that the Arabic language evolved in the north and came down, down, and down, not from the south going all the way up, as the Arabs tend to believe. And this is just the linguistic approach. And in a previous lecture, we spoke about who are the Arabs, and we saw that their hunting grounds, their stomping grounds were in the north as well. Right? And we have statements from the Himyarites who, when they identify certain people, they talk about the Arabs as an outside entity. And then the last slot into the puzzle of who are the Arabs and where the Arabs came from is when we look at the pre-Islamic pantheon, the Arabian pantheon. Where did those gods originate from, the north or the south? That would be the final nail in the coffin of the idea that the Arabs originated in the south. That's a very interesting class to look forward to as well. So the 6th century explosion of inscriptions, there is not a single writing orthography, but a century later there is standardization. So it's amazing what's just happened here, right? So we had a slow evolution of the Arabic language, slowly crystallizing, slowly becoming from a merger of dialects into classical Arabic, with a bed of Hijazi Arabic, where Rasulullah was, could have been Meccan dialect phases in one of the qira'as. And all of this took hundreds of years, because at this point now, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was going to be born, and then the Qur'an was going to be revealed, and the making of all of this spanned like 600 years, 700 years before. Absolutely amazing. So there were Nabataean Arabic. Again, it's one of those dialects. Colonies were in Qarit al-Faw, which is extreme to the south. So is that why maybe the Arabs thought we came from the south? And in Yathrib and along the west coast. These are trade routes. So language travels down trade routes. Up to the 6th century, it was used upwards from Yemen. The Qur'an was not Nabataean. Hijazi Qur'an has alladhi, allati, while in the north it is zu and zi. So in the north, the Nabataean Arabic, they would use dhu and the, which is like ism mawsul. In Arabic, it would be alladhi and allati, that which masculine, that which female, feminine, allati. The use of alif inside a letter to mark alif. So the hamza, they would have an alif either on top or bottom of it. And ta marabuta end in as we mentioned, in construct, using ha in context is Hijazi and Quranic. So this lends to the belief that the final bed of Arabic was Hijazi Arabic. So all of the other dialects had probably bits of influence, but the main influence was the Hijazi version of the Arabic language at that time. It wasn't Nabataean. Nabataeans spoke Arabic, but it was the Hijazi dialect that made up a large part of the Quran. Nabataean Arabic is a dialect of Arabic spoken by the Nabataeans, as it says on the tin. A written language as we mentioned earlier, was Aramaic, but it changed at some point. Here you can see it here, written. So the earliest use of Arabic, it must have been before the mention of Arabic at the Battle of Karkar in 853 BC. If you remember, right at the beginning, when we were studying pre-Islamic, the origin of the Arabs, we mentioned the Battle of Karkar. The name Jundub, grasshopper. That's an Arabic name, and Arabu is mentioned in the inscriptions of Shalmaneser that he was of the Arabs, and the coalition of forces, fought them in a war. For sure, Arabic must have been spoken before this. He's not the eponymous Ya'rub who just woke up from birth and speaking another language. Arabic was spoken before. Notice where were they placed? Well into the north, bordering the Assyrians, not well into the south. Here's another evidence that the Arabs originated from the north. So a good guess would be the early 2nd millennium BCE. There are signs such as U at the end of the Arabic signature marfu. So like we have U, al-kitabu. Al or La as a definite marker. Al is a hallmark of the Arabic language. If it in La or Al, right? How negation is used. Lam aktub, we mentioned this. The way negation is used, you're using the present tense to negate something that was done in the past. Negate the past using the present form. And ma kataba, again, ma would be the negation. Ma can also be for, and it's also for what? Like, mada taf'al, what did you do? What are you doing? Mada taf'al, what are you doing? And then ma as in the negation, ma fa'ala, I did not do. It's not seen in any other semantic language. And when you see these markers, you know that the language is a Semitic language, but it's got the hallmarks of Arabic. Its subjunctive mood and the verb and the tanween. This is Arabic. So we can look at these markers in scripts that are not clearly not Arabic, and we know that they are speaking Arabic. Forms of Arabic, dialects of Arabic, early forms of Arabic. Why did the script develop? It's because of the reason what we read here is the organizing of some sort of religious structure. Kings need administration. Kings like one language. Just like when the Umayyads invaded the Roman heartlands, they used Greek, but at some point they changed into Arabic. Scribes need to work uniformly. Otherwise, who's going to read what? Government, again, a government needs a cohesive administrative language. And it's an extension of power. So when you adopt an old language or a new language, it's an extension of your power. So like you mint coins, you have a standardized language, which is what the Umayyads did, right? And then obviously religion. In this case, it would be Islam. Islam caused the spread of the language, but in the past, obviously, it wasn't religion, right? Although we can say, based on what we just read, that the Christians were using Nabataean Arabic and things like that to spread. Government would be what? The emergence of Arab client states. Nimara, this is the inscription. Imr al-Qais, son of Amr, king of all the Arabs. I am Adiyu, son of Tha'lab, and this is another one. Manjabla says, Al-Harith, the king sent me Mundar, holding the position of king, ruler alone over all Saracens of Persia, Arabs. And he was always able to make his inroad with the whole army wherever he wished in the Roman domain. Neither any commander or Roman troops nor any leader of the Saracens allied with the Romans was strong enough with his men to ally himself against Mundar. For this reason, the Emperor Justinian put in command of as many clans as possible Al-Harith, the son of Jabala, who ruled over the Saracens of Arabia, and bestowed upon him the dignity of King Basileus, and a thing which among the Romans had never been done before. So as a result of the marauding Arabs from the Lukhmites, the Arabs that were on the eastern side bordering the Roman domains, that's the Nabataean domains and above, no longer Nabatea, they enthroned him, the chief, the Ghassanids. So now you have like a centralized mini Arabian rudimentary state. You need one language. And that would have been Arabic at that time. Here you can see in the first half of the first millennium BCE, undifferentiated North Arabian Arabic. This is from the epigraphic records. In the southern Levant and northwest Arabia, right? And then in the second half of the first millennium BCE, we have Safavitic writing tradition, Hismaic tradition, Nabataean Aramaic, possibly ad hoc attempts in Didantic and South Arabian, right? Where is this? Again, it's in the north, southern Levant, northwest Arabia, and it got down to Qaritul Faw, right? That's probably through a trade route. Then in the 1st and 4th centuries, we had Safavitic, Hismaic, Nabataean, ad hoc attempts in Greek and South Arabian, again where southern Levant, northwest Arabia, Qaritul Faw. In the 4th and 5th century, transitional Nabataean Arabic. So we're transitioning into Arabic, again where southern Levant, Mesopotamia, northwest Arabia, Hijaz, and Nagran, which is Qaritul Faw in the south. In the 6th century, we have the fully fledged Arabian script in where Levant and Mesopotamia, northwest Arabia, Hijaz, East Arabia, so it's spread this way now, and then it penetrates Yemen. So this is a linguistic proof that the Arabic originated in the north, not as the Arabs have you believe it's in the south. And the epigraphic record clearly shows it went from the north to the south. And this lends credence to the fact that it was the Arabs that were speaking the Arabic language. They started from the north and came down to the south. A 5th century BC, very old. This is like probably Aramaic in Taima inscription. Aramaic inscription in Hatra, 3rd century AD. This is Aramaic. In Palmyra, this is another inscription found. In Petra, another inscription. And transitional. Now we have transitional scripts. So look, on the top you can see the bottom is a different script. The top looks like Arabic, right? You can even read it, right? That script there, which is Safietic and it's Thamudic on the right hand side. This is the tomb which was built by Kabu, son of Arad, for Ra's daughter of whoever, right? And may the Lord of Eternity curse anyone who alters this tomb or opens it except his children, and may he curse anyone who buries and removes their body. So the Arabic would be Dhunu, Dhu, which is like owner of. This is the tomb of Qabru, built son of Arad. So Bar, Aramaic there, Bar, Harat, Li Rakus, daughter of Bart. Bart would be bint. And you can read that in your own time if it interests you. These things fascinate me. Chaucer's English is not readable, yet Arabic inscriptions over 2,000 years ago. So just learn these languages. They're not difficult to know the corresponding letters. And try your hand at translating inscriptions. And you will understand the Semitic languages, whether it's Arabic from 2,000 years ago or it's a variant, a Semitic variant. You will understand parts of that. More so than Chaucer's English today, when that was not too long in the past. From 300 BCE up to 400 AD, we have an explosion of Arabic in many different scripts, such as Greek and South Arabian, in ad hoc ways. This is also around the time when we started to see inscriptions mentioning one god in Arabia also. We have an explosion of literacy which challenges ideas of Jahiliyyah. We'll talk about this in the episode of Jahiliyyah, inshallah. That the claim that they were totally ignorant is you need to rethink that and reinterpret that, because some people could read and write, more people than we actually think. Most Arabic is found in the north by Jordan and Syria, east of Haran and Hisma and Dumma. Most Arabic is found there, the heartlands of the Arabs, not the south. Further south it gets more unlike Arabic, and in Yemen it's no longer Arabic, right? So you have a non-Arabic language here, Arabic here, and as you get more and more south, the languages become less and less like Arabic. Why do I keep highlighting this? It's because for me, it's one of my strong points to prove that the Arabs came from the north, right? This 1400-year-old understanding that the Arabs came from the south has no validation, no proofs attached to it. And then again and again in Seerah, you hear people mention they came from the south. And they use arguments like we saw, the first to speak Arabic was Hud, or Ya'rub was the first to speak Arabic, right? And you know, all of these stories that don't make historical or logical sense. But now we have the epigraphic record, right? So unless you have a hadith from Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the epigraphic record, it will challenge every statement of a scholar from the past, right? And where you have a statement of the scholar, it may be true, it may not be true, but when you have an epigraphic record that's written in stone, you can no longer dispute that, right? So most Arabic is found in the north by Jordan and Syria, east of Haran and the Hisma and Duma. Further south it gets more unlike Arabic, and in Yemen it's no longer Arabic. There is linguistic diversity of dialects and no pan-Arabic dialect, right? So the idea that everybody in the peninsula was speaking Fusha, that also needs to be reanalyzed. There is linguistic diversity of dialects and no pan-Arabic dialect. This is something else worth noting. Arab scholars, Muslim scholars, who are not well versed in history or linguistics, would have you believe that all of Arabia spoke classical Arabic. That's it. And all these other dialects are just corruptions of that one pristine language. That doesn't make sense from a linguistic point of view as well. Just take your country. For example, if you're from England, there are variations of dialect all over England, yet the standard language, which is standard English, most people understand, all people understand, because it's a homogeneous, civilized, meaning educated, with high level of education country. But then try understanding Scouser. How well will you understand Scouser? And what about the idiomatic expressions that are unique to those areas or the slang that they speak? You wouldn't understand it. Go to India, there are hundreds of languages, mutually unintelligible. Example, Pakistan. You have the Indo-Aryan languages. Some are very close, some are distant. Pashto and Punjabi are not understandable to each other. Urdu is the made language, the language of the elites, which very few people understand, the language of poetry, right? So classical Arabic was the language that only the poets understood and would write poetry in. Every area of the Arabian Peninsula had its own dialect. And we get hints of this from the Seerah as well, right? And when you go to various, like up in the north, for example, the Syrian dialects of Arabic or the Lebanese, like I'm saying Lebanon because Lebanon didn't exist then, but then certain words eh, spoken that are similar but not the same as classical Arabic show you a different root they came from, a different part of the Semitic language family. Fair enough. But when it comes to Arabic, like words like ma for water, right? The Levantines would say may. It's not that we can say that it's a corruption of the language over time that gave us may. No, it's in the inscriptions. It's been there for a long time. It always was may because it was a different dialect, right? So that's another problem that we have with the Islamic scholarship when they teach the Seerah, or they will tell you that the Arabic was always one classical Arabic, and now Egyptians and everybody else and just speaking like corrupted versions of it. No, that doesn't hold true. If anybody who studies linguistics will know that that doesn't hold true. This was the golden age of writing, which covered all of Arabia, as in inscriptions, right? The explosion of inscriptions we have and writing, and it was golden time. So around the 4th century, we have a bottleneck where diversity goes extinct and all writing traditions except for one remain. So all writing traditions and diversity go extinct. Something happened. What? We don't exactly know. Only one remains that is derived from Aramaic. That's the Nabataean writing system. The cursive nature suggests that they were writing with ink. This is the ancestor of the Arabic script. Remember, we said that when you carve on monuments, you cannot make those curves. Musnad is completely blocky, Roman is blocky, Greek is blocky. But when they write it, it becomes more and more cursive because now you're no longer applying pressure, you're writing softly and quickly. And then that's where the joining comes in as well. We see many examples strewn throughout the Hisma and Hara fields and North Arabia. E.g., there was a god called Radu, is close to Arabic word Rida, right? Rida means pleased, and the name God was named Radu. The pronunciation of Dad, Dad, they say Lugat al-Arabiya, Lugat al-Dad. It's the letter of the pronunciation of Da, because most people cannot get this out correctly, right? Where you're supposed to place your tongue for Da, Dad. We know the sound through using the Greek. So through using Greek, we know some of these sounds, but the exact sounds, how it sounded, it could sound like that, could sound off slightly. Ahmed Jalad has a rendition of the sounds that I quite like, and you can listen to him saying them. Like the sigma sounded like the word sigma. The S sounded like dad in Greek. The rural dialect and exotic dialects disappear as people speak what is in the sites which help preserve the dialect. Cities which speak what is in the cities which help preserve the dialects. Makes sense? Fusha is just the purity of the language, while MSA systically differs from classical Arabic. Right, so Fusha is the purity and the highest form of the Arab register. Right? MSA is stylistically different from classical Arabic. Anyone who knows Fusha and MSA will know that, right? So certain words like Um, um, there is a like فريق يعني يوجد فريق الناس, like there is a party of people. This came from Europe, party that the Arabs borrowed, right? Um, what's the other one that I knew? Like يوجد, there is. I'm not sure now. I'm not sure, but there were a few that that where MSA has borrowed, and it's not in the Fusha. And Fusha uses many archaic words and stuff that MSA has lost. It's simplified, but they're similar languages. If you want to learn Fusha, MSA would be a good start. Obviously, MSA has vocabulary that classical language wouldn't have, such as microwave, cooker, and you can call it oven, right? Or you can call it something that's totally new that didn't exist. And even if you say oven, what was the language being used thousand years ago? Like MSA is rad with i'rab, but classical Arabic is spoken with it. So in modern Arabic, you wouldn't say the i'rab. So most Arabs do not know the i'rab of the declining of the nouns, right? So for example, أريد أكل خبز ولحم, right? That's how they would speak. But whereas someone who's classically trained would speak in the archaic way. أنا أريد أن أكل خبزا ولحما, right? Perfectly articulated with all the diacritical marks and the declensions and everything in its right place. And this sounds very poetic. When you speak like this in public in the Middle East, they will smile at you and say that again, kind of thing. So this is the difference between MSA and classical Arabic. The classical Arabic is only really it's the scholarly class that have preserved that and that use it. And classical texts are written in that, and the Quran obviously is written in that. The Nabataeans as bearers of Arabic, we know they emerged in Edom at the earliest around 4th century BCE. They stood up against Alexander, preferring to live in the desert than in slavery. This is the topos of nomad freedom, and we have to be careful with such stories. Why I'm saying this is because this is what all nomads like to say, right? Did this story actually happen or not? But it is mentioned. We know they wrote in the Syrian language of Aramaic and spoke Arabic. That's an image of Dashura, Dhu Shahra, him of the mountains, the owner of he of the mountains. Dushara, it's one of the tutelar gods, right? There's a relation between this god and Lat, Manat, and Uzza, but the Hijazi Arabs adopted those gods, hint, hint, adopted those gods, but we don't hear mention of Dashura. The Nabataeans have clear Arabic names, so the Yemenis don't have Arabic names, right, in their script, but the Nabataeans have clear Arabic names. The deities they worship are also Arabic deities, which we will be looking at. Allah was one of their gods alongside Lat and Uzza. They spoke Arabic as an ethnic language. Ultimately, when Rome annexed the area, it was Arabic that they started to use, which led to its refinement over the following centuries. A case in point of how related languages are related is the Lebanese, right? So Lebanese, Hawat and Fusa, Huwa. So Huwa, and they would say Huwat, right? Word Kaaba is the name of the sacred structure in ancient South Arabia. So we have Kaaba in Mecca, and there was a structure in South Arabia called Ka'bat, I think it was. Ka'batum. Al-Ka'bat, yes, Al-Ka'bat, from grave inscriptions. And it's something that covers an area, right? Like a covering or something. Every Paleo-Arabic inscription calls upon one God, but they don't use Rahman. They worshipped one God. Obviously, Rahman would be used by Christians and Jews. One inscription west of Tabuk, he invokes Bismikallahumma tastaghfiru rabbuhu. This clearly sounds like what a Muslim would say, right? Like this is meaning, i.e., Arabic, pure Arabic. So this is an Arabic statement from the north. These ways of speech are not attested in the pagan phase. So these are monotheist phrases, idiomatic speech patterns that were done by the Christians, Jews, or monotheists, right? like predating Islam. Behind the language is a theology, and there's a theology and a transformation now, as we can see here. It's inclined with the monotheistic position for that time, even such names as Abu Uzza. It's a decline with monotheistic positions. I don't know, I'm getting very tired now, so I don't know the spelling. This subject will be touched upon in the lecture of religion in Arabian Peninsula in pre-Islamic Arabian times. Okay, so what can we conclude? In conclusion, Arabia was more literate than we presume. How do we know this? Because we have tens and tens, probably hundreds of thousands of inscriptions littering the desert, spanning a 2,000-year period, 1,500-year period. People could write. Some people were writing. They learnt writing in more numbers than we thought. We can't call it literacy in the proper term, right? I mean, in the modern sense, but some people learnt the alphabets. Like the other day, we did an exercise where we used the Muslim script to write poetry. And if you do it a few times, you start to understand the alphabets and you can start writing in Muslim. So it's not too difficult. They produced grave inscriptions, we know this. They set up sacrifices to gods. They wrote on rocks to pass the time. So the Hisma in the beginning, where I showed you that area that I said was green, every summer or winter, whenever the season is, the nomads go with their goats, and you have to watch your goats the whole day. What does a nomad do? He's got nothing to do. So they get a piece of stone and start carving on the rock. It helps to know a language, rudimentarily, write on the rock. Ancient Didan, which is Duma, Dumat in their own name, Duma, Didan, and South Arabia were literate. We know this. What we see in the Hijaz was the Nabataean writing was used beginning of the 1st century, and we see it evolving into a cursive script. Some additional information now away from this, a case for lesser known languages of today. So even in the Arabian Peninsula today, if you look at this map here, we have languages like Mehri, Harsusi, Sokrati, Bathari, Jibali, and Hubiyat. Strange names, and none of them sound like Arabic names, right? That's because those languages are not Arabic. They're modern South Arabian languages still surviving in the area, and the classicists, they knew about this. Abdullah Abu Muhammad al-Hassan al-Hamdani, he said the Mahra speak a barbarous tongue like foreigners. I will let you research the other languages for yourself. Go on YouTube, these places. It's very interesting. Hear them speaking as well. So Hamdani, who wrote Al-Iklil, who knew the Musnad, he's saying that they speak a barbarous tongue. Yet, despite all this evidence we have, Arabs and Seerah writers will have you believe and say to you, no, the Arabs emerged from the south. I don't know what the fixation is. The only thing I can understand is a misunderstanding of their genealogy, right? That's led them to believe that that's where it stems from. And we look at that, inshallah, when we get to the lesson on the genealogy. For further reading, this is something here. If you want further reading, look up Ahmed Jallad, Robert Hoyland. Both have incredibly engaging videos on YouTube as well as research papers on both of them and books as well. Thank you very much for attending. May Allah reward us for learning the prehistory, the pre-Seerah history of Arabia. It's very important. The reason these lectures are very lengthy, by the way, I'm indulging myself being a historian, and the reason that they're very lengthy is because I want to, after my indulgence, a reason is that I wish that everybody has a fortnight type map, right? You have a fortnight style map, you have a Assassin's Creed map in your head, right? So once it's so familiar, you know language, you know dialects, you know deities, you know which religion was where, which tribe was where, what was going on in different parts, what the topography was like, what kingdoms were where. Then when you start the Seerah and you look at the Seerah proper, all of a sudden it's like, wow, I can visually picture this. Whereas if you read the Seerah, if you're living in wintry England, rainy England, right, or wintry Scandinavia, and you're reading about the desert and you're reading about these tribes and these peoples and these rituals, and you're very far abstracted from those places and through time and space, right? So it's very important that if one studies the pre-Seerah properly, it really sets you up for a good Seerah towards the end. Thank you very much. Inshallah, see you next time for the next lesson. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi adada
كمال الله وكما يليق بكماله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على أسعد محمد وعلى آله عدد كمال الله وكما يليق بكماله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نور الهدى محمد وعلى آله عدد كمال الله وكما يليق بكماله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.